Everybody, welcome back to a smaller episode, I guess you can say. This is the third episode of Chemyabs. If you're tuning in for the first time, as you could say, welcome to the Mind Gym. Welcome to the place where my ridiculous, sometimes overthought thoughts live. We talk about everything from basketball, poetry, to the art of love and relationships and things of that sort. Of course, I'm just all saying this now with no game plan. But tonight, I want it to be a little different though. I'm recording this early in the morning, and the house isn't too quiet, but sometimes it feels like the world is. And when the world gets quiet, that's usually when the noise in your head starts to turn up. You know what I mean? That volume knob in your brain that you usually drown out with music or some gym brothers and sisters going to the gym, or young escapes like basketball, weed, alcohol, things of that sort. One of the most famous was now doom scrolling on TikTok. When everything else stops, all those things that I just listed, the knob turns all the way to 10. You know, I've been in my gap year for a minute now, and a gap year is dangerous if you aren't careful because you have time. You have time to think. You have time to look in the mirror. You have time to ask yourself who you are when you take off the mask. You have time to doubt. You have time to be depressed. You have time to feel like a failure. And you have time to feel like nothing, right? And then you have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, am I a failure for still living with my parents? Am I lost because I don't have a game plan for this life that I haven't lived before? So that's getting back to that idea of a mask, right? But anyways, I've been writing a lot. You guys know this. Writing has always been an outlet for me besides sports, but lately it's felt more like survival than a hobby. Like, if I don't get these words out of me, they're going to rot inside me. I recently put this collection, Poems from a Black Boy, and the response has been crazy. I just want to thank y'all for all the support I've been getting on that book. I appreciate every single one of you. Bought it, read it, shared it. But there's one specific piece in there that people keep DMing me about. It's the one that seems to make people the most uncomfortable. And usually, when art makes you feel uncomfortable, it means it's telling the truth. There were multiple poems in my book that were made to make you feel uncomfortable. I'm not gonna lie to you. But the specific one I've been hearing the most feedback about is called Am I Allowed to Feel? And I want to spend this entire episode just me and you breaking this down. Because this question, am I allowed to feel? I don't think we ask it as much as we should. Actually, I think we already know the answer. Specifically, the answer the world gives us. The world says no. The world says shut up. The world says get over it. But I want to talk about why. Why do we accept that? Why do we live by a code that, for lack of a better term, destroys us? So, sorry for the sniffles and the coughs. I'm under the weather. But everybody get comfortable. If you're driving, just cruise, and if you're in a room, turn the lights down. We are about to yap. We are about to get into the deep end. Now, before I read this piece, I need to set the stage. I want you to think about the first time you were told to stop crying, not asked, told. For most of us men, it happens before we can even ride a bike without training wheels. You scrape your knee, you fall down, something scares you, and immediately the reaction from the adults around you isn't, "Are you okay?" It's, "Get up, you're fine." Big boys don't cry. Big boys don't cry. That's the first lie, the first brick in the wall that we build around ourselves. See, like I already know the jokes is coming. I'm 6'7". I'm 235 pounds, and when I walk into a room, quite literally, I take up space. When I step onto a basketball court, a football field, that size is an asset. It's power, it's leverage. People look at me and they see a machine, they see a defender, they see someone who can take a hit and keep moving. And in sports, that's great. In sports, you need that armor. You get fouled hard going to the rim, you can't lay there and weep about it. You have to get up, shake it off, and hit the free throws. That's the game. The problem is we treat life like it's the game. We treat a breakup like a foul, and we treat grief like a turnover. We treat depression like a bad quarter, and we think if we can just lock in, if we just toughen up, we can win. But emotions aren't an opponent you can dunk on. You can't outmuscle sadness. You can't bench press your way out of loneliness. I wrote this poem because I had reached a point where the armor was getting too heavy for me. I was walking around with this usual disposition of what I guess you can call it like what? Black boy joy, right? And as much as I wanted it to be true for me, it was a facade. It was a mask to be the ones who was always smiling, always cool, always unbothered, kiddish in action sometimes, and mature enough to know when to put a pause on it, but having fun. And to tell the truth, underneath that mask, I was carrying weights that I never really put down. I started thinking about all the specific moments in my life where I felt something intense, sadness, fear, heartbreak, and I crushed it almost instinctively. I suffocated the feeling before it could even breathe. Why? Because I was scared. I was scared that if I let myself feel it, I would look weak. And where I'm from, where we are from, looking weak is dangerous. Looking weak can cost you respect. It can cost you your spot on the team. In some neighborhoods, looking soft can cost you your life. So we become actors, Oscar winning at that, especially for the performances that we put on every single day. How you doing, bro? I'm chilling. Lie. You okay after that breakup? Man, forget her. I'm on to the next. Lie. Scared about the future? Nah, I got a plan. So this poem, Am I Allowed to Feel, is a list of those lies. It's a receipt. It's me looking at the tab I've run up by suppressing my emotions for over 18 years. So let me read it to you. And I want you to really listen to the scenarios. Ask yourself if you've been there. When my cousin got shot, I wanted to cry, but the block said, "Don't be weak." So I swallowed the tears like bad medicine, and it sat in my chest for years. When my girl left, I wanted to say I was broken, but the homies laughed. Plenty more bitches out there. Don't trip. So I nodded and pretended I didn't replay her goodbye every night like a song stuck on repeat. When I told my mama I was hurting, she said, "Boy, don't start. You got food, you got clothes, you alive." As if my pain needed permission to show. As if survival cancels out sorrow. When the teacher called me angry, I was just tired. When the cop called me threat, I was just scared. Every feeling I tried to show got renamed for me. So I learned to go quiet, to laugh when I wanted to scream, to fight when I wanted to fold, to call numbness manhood. So, yeah, that's a portion of the poem, of course, but the last line specifically is the one I want us to focus on, to call numbness manhood. That's the thesis statement of my generation right now. We have confused being numb with being a man. We think the less we feel, the more of a man we are. If I can stand at a funeral and not shed a tear, I'm strong. If I can watch my relationship fall apart and not flinch, I'm a player. But that's not strength. It's emotional paralysis. That's nerve damage. So let's go back to the top. I want to break this down stanza by stanza for you because each part touches on a different authority figure that teaches us to shut down. So, starting off with obviously Streets the Black. When my cousin got shot, I wanted to cry, but the block said, "Don't be weak." When I wrote this, I wasn't talking about gun violence. It's about the culture of public grief. When tragedy strikes in our communities, there's a very specific protocol for men. You can be angry, you could talk about revenge, you could pour out some liquor, but you can't cry. You can't be vulnerable because on the block, vulnerability looks like an opening. It looks like Target. If you're crying, you aren't paying attention. If you're sad, you're not ready for what comes next. So we turn grief into anger, and anger is acceptable. Anger is masculine. For black men, anger or to be angry is what we are. The thing about it is it's active. Sadness is passive. Sadness implies you lost something you can't get back. So what happens? I swallow the tears like bad medicine. You know that feeling? That literal lump in your throat, burning behind your eyes. You swallow it. You force it down into your stomach and you think it dissolves because you think you didn't let it out. It must be gone. So it's not gone. To tell you the truth, it's just sitting there. It sat in my chest for years. That's why we have high blood pressure at 30. That's why we snap at people for no reason. That's why we have ulcers. Because we are walking around filled with years of uncried tears. We are walking cemeteries of emotion. Now, to the next representation. The homies. Look, I love my boys, but look, in the section of relationships, specifically this line first. When my girl left, I wanted to say I was broken, but the homies laughed. Plenty more bitches out there, don't trip. Man, I can't tell you how many times I've had these conversations with my homies. Like, if we so meet a shorty, we all get together, we think, okay, she fly, yada yada yada, we go together. Boom. Shorty make a mistake. Let one of my boys come back and tell us yeah, that she did this. It's immediately cut her off. It's immediately this and it's immediately that. And there's always this kind of air of we don't need connection. Everybody can be replaced. And it sets a precedent for just a rock like emotional state, which is very dangerous, you know? And we do that a lot as boys. Like, listen, I'm no exception. Like, I've with my boys plenty times. If I ain't like something a girl did, and if I was in their shoes, I was like, bro, you gotta cut her off, right? But more specifically focusing on relationships, I remember when I broke up with my girl. I was in the depths, bro. I was sad. And I was mad too, because it didn't end how I thought it would end. Anywho, what is it like? Yo, yeah, listen, we gotta lock that party, little boys. Boy, you gotta be kidding, Luke, right? And if you know me or you know anything about me, one of the aliases I used to go by was Kenny Lou. It was another mask. It was a protection mechanism. This mask of a player, this Casanova, if you will, that had what he wanted and took what was good and disregarded the rest. And to be honest, I'm not gonna lie to you, it was fun. It was fun, but it hurt people that didn't deserve to be hurt, and I paid for it. I sure did. And I even had talked to my homies about it. I'm like, yo, we can't do that because it's not helpful at all. Like, bro. And yeah. But focusing back on the poetry element. See, what did I even say? All right, here we go. When my girl left, I wanted to say I was broken, but the homies laughed. Plenty more out there, no trip. So when you're hold up, when you're hurting over a girl, I think one of our instincts as men is to minimize it because we're such containers for rage. And in the boy's mind, I think we all think that we're helping him by telling him she wasn't special, right? And sometimes they think they're helping you by just telling you to go get another one. Don't trip. She belongs to the streets. To the next, right? I don't even know. Like, it's almost a toxic positivity mixed with, of course, the foundation being misogyny, right? And don't get me wrong. The only reason I say misogyny is because it's focused on the men right now. We're not talking about y'all, ladies, right? But yeah, it's just toxic positivity mixed with misogyny. It turns women into interchangeable objects. If she's just an object and losing her shouldn't hurt, right? Just go get another one. But again, it's a lie. You know you love that girl. You know she understood you in a way that even your boys couldn't. Mostly because you're not into diddyful activities. But to each his own. Salute, right? But you can't say that you loved her. You can't say that you hurt her. No, it's like you'll never go to homies and be like, "Hey guys, I'm devastated, and I feel like I lost my best friend." Because if you say that, you whip, you pussy whip, you a simp. So what do? I nodded, pretend I didn't reply her goodbye every night. We perform indifference. We act like we don't care, and that performance isolates us. You're surrounded by your friends laughing, playing 2K, talking trash, but you are completely alone because the version of you that is hurting isn't even allowed in the room. Now, the mother, this could have been the father and the mother. It really doesn't matter, but it was mostly just to represent some people's experience. It wasn't my experience with my mama. I'm not gonna lie. When I told my mama I was hurting, she said, "Boy, don't start. You got food, you got clothes, you alive." And I always listen. I know I already said I love my mother. I love black mothers. They are the backbone of everything. But we have to be honest about the gratitude trail, right? I just came up with that on the spot. A lot of our parents, their generation specifically, grew up in survival mode. They grew up trying to keep the lights on, trying to keep us fed, trying to keep us out of the jail or out of the grave. To them, success is survival. If you are alive, fed, and clothed, you have won. So when you come to them with emotional problems like, "Mom, I'm anxious. Mom, I feel empty. Dad, I'm depressed." It doesn't compute. It sounds like ungratefulness. To them, your depression looks like an insult to their sacrifice. How can you be sad when I work two jobs to get you those Jordans? As if pain needs permission, as if survival cancels out sorrow. That's a lie right there. Survival does not cancel out sorrow. You can be fed and still be starving spiritually. You can be safe and still be terrified. You can have a roof over your head and still feel like you're drowning. But because we don't want to disrespect our parents, we internalize this idea that our feelings are invalid. We think, maybe I'm just being soft. Wow. Y'all, I am so sorry. Let me pause the recording right quick. Woo! Okay. And after what felt like 30 years, we're back. Yeah, but back to what I was saying. Uh, to line as if pain needs permission, as if survival cancels out sorrow. Survival does not cancel out sorrow. You can be fed all the Popeyes biscuits you want, but still be thirsty for some water. You can be safe and still be terrified. You can have a roof over your head and still feel like you're drowning. Hmm. That's a double entendre. And here we go again. Yeah. And once again, we are back. So, back to the idea of drowning, right? Drowning in these fire alarms at this point. But, anyways, because we don't want to disrespect our parents, right? We internalize this idea that our feelings are invalid. We think maybe this being soft. Maybe I should just be grateful. So we shut down again. We learned that our pain is an inconvenience to the people who supposedly love us. Now, the system. The fourth stanza, the outside world. When the teacher called me angry, I was just tired. When the cop called me threat, I was just scared. This is what I call the renaming. This is what happens when society looks at a black boy and they don't see the internal reality. They only see the external projection. Right? If I'm quiet in class, I'm exhausted or sad, I'm not depressed, I'm not disengaged or defiant. I'm walking down the street and I'm nervous because I see a patrol car. I'm not anxious. I'm acting suspicious. Look, I'm a big dude. If I raise my voice because I'm passionate, I'm aggressive. My feelings, I feel like, especially like for me, like my feelings get rewritten by other people's fears, right? Every feeling I tried to show got renamed for me. And sometimes it's maddening to feel one thing, but to be punished for another. You feel sadness and they punish you for anger. You feel fear and they punish you for aggression. Eventually, you stop showing anything. Because of showing your feelings can get you suspended or arrested or shot. You learn to be a stone. You really do. But that leads us to the end of the first half. The result, if you will. So I learned to go quiet, to laugh when I wanted to scream, to call numbness manhood. That is the destination. That is where the script leads us. We become zombies. We become men who can't connect with our parents because we don't know how to be vulnerable. We become men that don't know how to connect with our sons or can't hug them because we think we have to toughen them up. We become sure, we become artists who are afraid to tell the truth. We often confuse being hard with being strong. A rock is hard. You can trip over a rock and bust your head and die. But if you hit that same rock with a hammer, it shatters. See, water is soft, but it can cut through rock over time. It can adapt. It can flow, right? We are trying to be rocks, and like Bruce Lee said, we have to be like water. I know some of you are listening to this and just nodding your head like those people in those seminars with those prosperity preachers, right? And my hope is that you feel seen, but that you also feel heavy, realizing, yeah, okay, you just listed all the ways I've messed up. But what do I do about it? Am I allowed to feel? Is the answer yes or no? See, here's the thing. I didn't read the whole poem. I stopped halfway because the feeling you have right now, the frustration, the weight, the realization that the manhood script is a lie, you have to sit with that. You have to actually feel the weight of the armor that you put on every day before you truly take it off. Now, the second half of this poem, starting on the next page, is the pivot. That's where I talk about what happened when you finally break the silence. It's where I talk about the difference between a warrior and a garden. That's where I talk about God and redemption, and the strength it takes to actually cry. But I can't give you the answer on a podcast. You can't just passively consume your own healing. You have to actively go get it. I wrote Poems from a Black boy, not just to vent, but to give us a blueprint, to give us permission. If you want to know how the poem ends, if you want to know the answer to the question, am I allowed to feel? You have to engage with the work. And look, I'm not trying to hold out on you just to sell the book. But I do want you to go buy the book. I'm trying to get you to pick up a physical object or even digital, but get the physical because you need to feel it. Keep on trying to avoid it and put it in different ways so it doesn't hurt the same. Mhm. Clock that. I want you to sit in a quiet room. Turn off your phone and read something that reflects your soul back to you. See, the answer is in the book. The redemption is in the book. So I'm going to end the episode now. I'm going to leave you with the question: am I allowed to feel? Look at your life this week. Look at the moments where you swallowed the medicine. Look at the moments where You nodded when you wanted to scream. And when you're ready to find that answer, you know where to find me. Poems from a Black Boy. It's out now. The link is in my bio. Go get it, read page 40, and then DM me. Tell me what you found. This has been Kim Yops. Protect your peace, protect your mind, and remember the silence is loud, but your voice is always louder. Perfect ending. Jesus loves you. I'm gone.